Do you want to be the one left wishing you had changed? Do you want to be the one standing there, looking at your life, knowing it's too late? I've seen it. I've been there. And I'm telling you now, there's no do-over. There's no reset button when it's over. Your choices today will follow you forever. And when the end comes, you'll either be ready or you won't. But let me ask you, why wait? Why take that chance when you can act right now? Don't wait for a second chance. Don't wait for a moment when it's too late. Because trust me, that moment will come and you won't be ready. No one ever is.
Before we proceed into this incredible and life-changing testimony, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on more powerful tales and warnings like this. If you're moved by what you hear, like and share this video with your friends and family. You never know who needs to hear this message today. And if this story speaks to you on a deeper level, feel free to comment below. Share your thoughts or even say a prayer for strength to make the right choices in your life. Let's start this journey together.
The reality of eternity. I want you to stop whatever you're doing and just listen. This is not a story for entertainment. This is a warning from someone who has seen what happens after death. My name is Captain Samuel Obiora, and I died. Yes, I was dead, buried in darkness, but I came back. Not because I deserved another chance, but because I was sent back to tell you what I saw. Have you ever wondered what happens the moment your heart stops beating? Do you think it's the end? That everything just fades to black and your troubles are over? Let me tell you now, the moment I took my last breath, I realized how wrong I had been. Death wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something I never imagined. When the bullet hit me, I didn't feel pain. I didn't even know I was gone. It was like stepping out of one room and into another. But this new place, it wasn't like anything I'd ever known. It wasn't warm or peaceful. It was cold, silent, and heavy. Then the darkness came. A darkness so thick, I couldn't see my own hands in front of me. I felt like I was sinking, trapped in something I couldn't escape. I started to run. I don't know why, but something inside me screamed, "Keep moving." The darkness seemed alive, like it wanted to swallow me whole. My heart, if I even had one anymore, was pounding with fear. I was running, but I didn't know where I was going. Then, out of nowhere, a faint light appeared. It was small, like a candle in a storm, but it gave me hope. I thought, if I can just reach that light, I'll be safe. But as I got closer, the air changed. It became heavier, hotter. My skin felt like it was being pricked by 1,000 needles. And then, I heard it, the voices. Not one or two, but hundreds, maybe thousands. They were crying, screaming, begging for help. Some were calling out names, others were just wailing. It wasn't like any sound I'd ever heard before. It wasn't just loud, it was desperate, hopeless. As I stood there frozen, a voice called out to me. It wasn't like the others. It was deep, commanding, and terrifying. It asked me a question that still makes my stomach turn when I think about it. Where are you coming from, and what have you done with your life? My mind raced. I wanted to answer, but I didn't know how. I tried to speak, but the truth poured out of me like water from a broken dam. I couldn't stop it. Every lie I told, every wrong I'd done, every sin I thought no one knew about, it all came spilling out. My own voice betrayed me. And then, I saw it, a book. A glowing book appeared in front of me. The pages turned on their own, and everything I had ever done was written there, clear as day. Things I'd forgotten, things I'd buried deep inside, all written down like they had been recorded the moment they happened. That's when I realized something that shattered me. Nothing is hidden. Nothing is forgotten. And nothing can be undone. The truth is, everything we do is written somewhere, waiting for the day we'll have to answer for it. As I read those pages, I felt something cold grip my chest. It wasn't just regret, it was terror. I wanted to close the book, to make it all disappear, but I couldn't. I was being judged, and I had no defense. You think you have time, don't you? Time to fix your mistakes. Time to turn things around. I thought that too. But in that moment, standing there in front of that book, I realized how little time I had left. No second chances. No do-overs. Just judgment. The voice spoke again, "Look to your left." I turned, and what I saw, I can't even put it into words. Imagine fire, but not the kind that burns wood or paper. This fire was alive, hungry, and endless. And the screams were louder now, clearer. They weren't just sounds, they were emotions. Pain, regret, fear, all mixed together. And I knew, deep down, that I was about to join them. But that's where I stop for now. If you think this is just a story, you're wrong. What I'm telling you isn't fiction. It's not a dream or a vision. It's what I saw, what I lived. And if you think you're safe, if you think you have nothing to worry about, let me ask you this: are you ready to answer for your life? Because the next moment might be your last. Let me take you back to where it all started, the battlefield, where I thought I was in control. But I wasn't. Not even close. The battlefield incident. Let me take you back to the day everything changed. I was a soldier, proud, strong, and confident. I thought I had control over my life. I thought I had years ahead of me to figure things out. But life doesn't always give warnings. Sometimes, it just stops. It was during a fierce battle. Bullets were flying, explosions shaking the earth, and the cries of my comrades filled the air. I had trained for this. I believed I was ready for anything. I charged forward, thinking I was invincible. But in war, nothing is guaranteed, not even your next breath. I felt the impact before I heard the gunfire. A bullet struck me. It was quick, like the flick of a switch, and everything around me went silent. No pain, no fear, just silence. I collapsed. My body hit the ground, but I didn't understand what had happened. Have you ever been in a moment where you feel like time has stopped? That's how it felt. The chaos around me faded, and for a brief second, I thought I had just fallen unconscious. But then, I noticed something strange. I could see my body lying on the ground. My comrades were shouting my name, but I couldn't respond. I wanted to tell them I was okay, but the words wouldn't come. I reached out to touch one of them, but my hand passed right through him. That's when it hit me, I wasn't there anymore. They carried my body off the battlefield. I followed them, confused and desperate. This can't be happening, I thought. This isn't how my story ends. But no matter how much I tried to deny it, I knew something was terribly wrong. When they laid me down and covered my face, I panicked. I shouted, "I'm still here. I'm not dead." But no one could hear me. Have you ever felt completely powerless? Like no matter what you do, nothing changes. That's how I felt in that moment. As they prepared my body for burial, I noticed the light around me changing. The colors of the world began to drain, turning into shades of gray. The air grew heavier, colder. Then, without warning, the ground beneath me seemed to vanish. I fell, not like falling from a height, but as if I were being pulled into something. It was a slow, sinking feeling, and the farther I fell, the darker it became. I wanted to fight it, to climb back up, but I couldn't. It felt like the weight of everything I'd ever done was dragging me down. That's when the darkness took over. A silence so deep it made my ears ring. I couldn't see anything, couldn't feel anything. It was like being trapped in a void with no way out. I started running, not because I knew where I was going, but because standing still felt like giving up. The darkness seemed alive, pressing against me, swallowing every bit of hope I had left. And then, I saw it. A faint light in the distance. It was small, barely visible, but it was the only thing I could focus on. I thought, if I can just reach that light, everything will be okay. But as I ran toward it, I realized something wasn't right. The air grew hotter. My chest tightened. I felt like I was being watched. That's when I heard them, the voices. They weren't human. They were cries, wails, screams that sounded like they came from every direction. Some were faint, like whispers, while others were deafening. I wanted to stop and cover my ears, but I couldn't. The light was my only hope, and I had to keep going. Do you know that feeling of chasing something you believe will save you, only to realize it might lead you somewhere worse? That's the fear that gripped me as I got closer. And then I saw it. Two paths stretched out in front of me. One was narrow and bright, glowing with a warmth I could feel even from a distance. The other was wide and shrouded in shadows, with faint flickers of red deep within it. I froze, unsure of which way to go. Before I could move, a voice called out, a deep, thunderous voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It asked me a question I'll never forget: where are you coming from, and what have you done with your life? And just like that, I was no longer running. I was standing still, my heart pounding as the weight of the question sank in. I wanted to answer, but the words wouldn't come. My mind raced, trying to make sense of everything. What would you say if that question were asked of you right now? Would you have an answer? Would you be ready? As I stood there, frozen in fear, the voice spoke again, and I knew that whatever happened next would change me forever. The journey into darkness. I stood there, frozen, trying to understand where I was. The question still echoed in my head: where are you coming from, and what have you done with your life? I wanted to speak, but the words wouldn't come. It was like my voice had been taken from me. Then, the light that I thought was my escape flickered. It wasn't warm or inviting anymore. It felt distant, as if it wasn't meant for me. My chest tightened, and fear gripped me like a cold hand around my neck. I knew something was wrong. Suddenly, the ground beneath me shifted. The two paths, one glowing, one shrouded in shadow, seemed to pull apart, stretching further and further away from each other. I tried to move toward the narrow path, but my feet wouldn't budge. It was as if something was holding me back, pulling me toward the wide, shadowy road. The air grew heavier. Each breath felt like I was inhaling smoke. And then, the voices started again. At first, they were faint, like whispers in the distance. But with every step I took, they grew louder. Some were crying, others were screaming, and a few were laughing, but not the kind of laugh you'd want to hear. It was hollow, cold, and full of pain. "Samuel," one voice called, clear and sharp. My heart sank. Someone knew my name. I turned, desperate to see who it was, but there was no one. Just the darkness. Have you ever felt like something was watching you? Like there were eyes hidden in the shadows, waiting for you to make a mistake? That's what it felt like. Every part of me wanted to run, but I didn't know where to go. The light I had been chasing seemed farther away now. And the white path, oh, that path, it called to me. It didn't speak in words, but I could feel it pulling at me, whispering promises that I couldn't fully understand. Do you know what it feels like to question every choice you've ever made? To wonder if you've wasted your life? That's what I felt in that moment. The weight of my regrets was so heavy, I thought I might collapse under it. As I stepped closer to the white path, the air changed again. It wasn't just heavy, it was hot. Not like the heat of the sun, but something far worse. It burned my skin, even though there was no fire in sight. And then I saw them. Shapes in the shadows. They weren't human, but they moved like people, reaching, clawing, dragging themselves toward me. Their eyes glowed red, and their mouths opened in silent screams. My legs felt weak. My knees buckled, and I fell to the ground. I wanted to close my eyes, but I couldn't look away. The shapes moved closer, their hands stretching out toward me. "Samuel," one of them whispered again. This time, it was louder. It felt like the voice was inside my head. I screamed, "What do you want from me?" But no one answered. The shadows just kept moving, circling me like predators waiting to strike. And then, just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, I heard the voice again, the same one that had asked me the question. This time, it was louder, stronger, and impossible to ignore. You cannot run from your life. My chest tightened. I could feel my heartbeat pounding in my ears. The shadows stopped moving, frozen as if they were waiting for something. The voice spoke again, look at the path you've chosen. Look at where it leads. I turned my head, and that's when I saw it. The white path stretched out before me, disappearing into a fiery red haze. The screams I had heard earlier weren't whispers anymore. They were loud, piercing cries of pain and regret. I could see the edge of the path now. It dropped off into a pit so deep, I couldn't see the bottom. Flames shot up from the darkness, licking at the edges of the path like they were alive. Where are you going, Samuel? The voice asked. I didn't have an answer. I wanted to scream that I didn't know, but the truth was, I did know. Every step I had taken in my life had led me to this moment. Every choice, every lie, every selfish act, it had all brought me here. Do you think you're ready to face what's next? The voice asked. Are you ready to face what's next? Right now, as you're listening to me, can you honestly say you know where your path is leading? Because in that moment, I couldn't. I wanted to turn back, to run away from the white path and toward the light, but something held me in place. The shadows were waiting, the fire was roaring, and my legs wouldn't move. Then the voice spoke again, and this time, it wasn't a question. It was a command. You will answer for your life. And that's when everything changed. The voice of judgment. And then, I saw it, a book. It wasn't an ordinary book. It hovered in the air, glowing faintly, and its size seemed to grow the longer I looked at it. The pages turned on their own, slowly at first, then faster, as though something unseen was flipping through it. My heart sank because I knew, somehow, I just knew, this book was about me. Everything I had ever done, every word I had ever spoken, every thought I had ever hidden, it was all written there. A voice boomed, louder than anything I had ever heard, read. I wanted to resist. I wanted to say, no, I can't. But I couldn't stop myself. My eyes locked onto the pages, and they started to speak to me. The words on the page weren't just words. They were moments, snapshots of my life. I could see myself, as if I were watching a movie of all the times I thought no one was watching. There I was, stealing something small as a child and thinking it didn't matter. There I was, telling a lie to save myself, thinking no harm would come from it. Every cruel word, every selfish act, every moment I ignored the truth, they were all there. And the worst part, I couldn't deny any of it. The book didn't exaggerate. It didn't twist the truth. It showed things exactly as they happened, and I had no excuse. Have you ever done something wrong and convinced yourself it wasn't a big deal? Maybe you thought, nobody saw, so it doesn't count. That's what I used to think. But let me tell you, nothing is hidden. Not a single word, not a single thought. As I kept reading, I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. The truth was staring me in the face, and there was nowhere to hide. I started to cry, not because I was sad, but because I felt something deeper, shame. The voice spoke again, and this time, it sounded closer, almost like it was right behind me. You knew what was right, yet you chose what was wrong. I tried to speak, to defend myself, but my mouth wouldn't move. It felt like my own body had turned against me. The voice continued, your time on earth was your chance to choose. What did you choose, Samuel? What would you say if someone asked you that right now? What have you chosen? Because in that moment, I realized I had wasted so much time chasing things that didn't matter. I thought I had years to make things right, but I was wrong. I couldn't stop the tears. They poured down my face as I kept reading. The book didn't just show my sins. It showed the times I could have done good but didn't. The times I stayed silent when I should have spoken up. The opportunities one ignored to help someone in need. The voice cut through my thoughts. Every action, every choice, every moment brought you here. And then, the book closed with a loud snap, and I felt something shift. The glowing pages turned dark, and the air around me grew colder. The voice spoke again, this time with a finality that sent chills down my spine. You will see where your choices lead. I wanted to scream, to beg for another chance, but I couldn't move, couldn't speak. The book vanished, and the shadows around me started to shift. The ground beneath me began to crack, and I could feel heat rising from below. Have you ever been so afraid that your whole body feels like it's shutting down? That's how I felt. My chest was tight, my legs were shaking, and my heart felt like it might explode. And then, I saw it, a fiery chasm, opening up right in front of me. The flames roared, and the screams I had heard earlier grew louder, more terrifying. It wasn't just noise. It was raw, endless pain. The voice spoke one last time. Look, Samuel. This is the path you've chosen. And as I looked into that abyss, I realized that every step I had taken in my life had brought me to this moment. Every lie, every selfish act, every missed opportunity, it all led here. Do you know where your path is taking you? Are you sure it's leading somewhere safe? Because standing on the edge of that chasm, I wasn't. The heat grew stronger, the screams louder, and I knew I was about to fall. But just before I did, something happened, something that changed everything. The abyss of torment. The ground beneath me cracked wide open, and the heat surged up like a wave of fire. I couldn't see the bottom. It was a bottomless pit, and the flames seemed to rise out of nowhere, twisting and roaring as though they were alive. The screams. I will never forget those screams. They weren't just sounds. They were filled with pain, anger, and something worse, regret. It was the kind of regret you feel when it's too late to fix anything, the kind that tears at your soul and never lets go. I tried to turn away, but something forced me to look. The voice that had spoken before didn't say anything now, but I could feel its presence. It was as if it wanted me to see, no, it wanted me to understand what was waiting for me. The edge of the pit was so close I could feel the heat burning my skin. It wasn't the kind of heat you feel from a fire on earth. This heat was alive. It wrapped around me like invisible hands, pulling me closer, daring me to take one more step. And then I saw them, shapes in the flames. They weren't clear at first, just shadows riding and twisting. But as I got closer, the shadows took form. They were people. Faces. My breath caught in my throat because I recognized some of them. There was a man who used to work at my father's farm, a woman from my village who always seemed so kind. And then I saw someone else, my friend, the one I used to laugh with, drink with, and plan the future with. He had died years ago, but there he was, reaching out of the flames, his face twisted in agony. Samuel, he screamed, his voice cracking with pain. Samuel, don't come here. Don't. His hand stretched toward me as though he wanted to grab me and pull me back, but he couldn't move out of the fire. I wanted to help him. I wanted to reach out and pull him free, but the heat was so intense I couldn't take another step. Have you ever felt helpless? So helpless that your heart breaks just standing there. That's how I felt. And as I stood there, frozen, more voices began to call my name. They weren't just strangers. They were people I knew. Some I had forgotten about, others I thought were long gone. They were all crying, begging, and screaming, but their voices were filled with despair. Samuel, go back. You don't want this. Samuel, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Help me. Someone help me. The flames rose higher, and the shadows moved faster. Their faces twisted and turned, their mouths open in silent screams when they couldn't find the strength to cry anymore. That's when I saw the chains. They weren't just burning, they were alive, like fiery serpents wrapping around the people in the pit, pulling them deeper. I watched as one man tried to climb out, his hands clawing at the edge of the chasm, but the chains pulled him back. The fire roared louder, and his screams faded into nothing. Do you think you're ready for something like that? To see your life, your choices, lead you to a place you can never escape. Because standing there, I realized this wasn't a nightmare. This wasn't a warning. This was real. The voice returned, booming over the fire and the screams. It was cold and final, and it spoke only one word: watch. I couldn't move. My legs were like stone. My chest felt like it was going to explode, but my eyes stayed fixed on the pit. Then something strange happened. The faces in the flames turned toward me. Every single one of them. Their eyes locked onto mine, and I felt something I can't explain. It was like they were speaking without words, and what they said was clear: this is where you're going. The ground under my feet started to crumble, and I knew I was about to fall. I wanted to scream, to beg, to do anything to stop what was happening, but it was too late. Do you think you have time to change? Time to fix things? I thought so too. But the truth is, when your time comes, there's no more second chances. No more excuses. Just the truth staring you in the face. I started to slip. My foot slid closer to the edge, and I could feel the heat leaking at my legs. The flames rose higher, and the chains seemed to reach out for me. And then, divine intervention. Just as I was about to fall, something happened that I would never forget. A voice thundered above the chaos, louder than the screams, louder than the fire, louder than my own thoughts. It wasn't harsh, but it wasn't soft either. It carried power, authority, and something else: mercy. Stop. The ground beneath me froze. The heat subsided just enough for me to breathe, and the flames pulled back, as though they were afraid of the voice. The chains that had been reaching for me stopped moving, dangling like broken ropes. I didn't know where the voice was coming from, but I knew one thing: it wasn't like the other voice. This voice wasn't here to condemn me, it was here to save me. Son, it said, and the word hit me like a wave. It wasn't just a word. It carried something with it, something I can't fully explain. It felt like love, but also sorrow, as if the voice knew everything about me, the good, the bad, the things I tried to hide, and still called me son. I fell to my knees, shaking. Please, I whispered. Don't let me fall. There was silence for a moment, and then the voice spoke again. Your sins are forgiven. Forgiven. That word echoed in my mind. I didn't deserve it. I knew that. Everything I had done, every mistake, every choice that led me to the edge of that pit, how could I be forgiven? But the voice didn't wait for my doubts. It continued: you will return. Your time is not yet over. Go and warn them. Warn everyone you can. And then, it was like a hand reached out of nowhere. I couldn't see it, but I felt it. It was warm, strong, and gentle all at once. It grabbed hold of me and pulled me back from the edge. The flames disappeared, the screams faded, and the chains that had been reaching for me dissolved into nothing. The pit was gone, and I was standing in the darkness again, but this time, the darkness didn't feel so heavy. I fell to the ground, trembling. Tears streamed down my face, and I couldn't stop them. Have you ever felt so unworthy of kindness that it breaks you? That's how I felt in that moment. The voice spoke one last time: remember what you've seen. Tell them. They must know. And then, everything started to change. The darkness began to lift, and I felt a force pulling me upward. It was gentle but firm, like I was being carried by something I couldn't see. The heat was gone, replaced by a cool breeze, and the heaviness in my chest started to fade. I could see light in the distance again, but this time, it wasn't faint. It was bright and clear, and it felt like it was calling me. Do you know what it feels like to get a second chance? To know that your life isn't over, that you still have time to make things right. That's what I felt as I was pulled toward that light. But the journey wasn't over. The voice had told me to warn you, and I knew what that meant. What I saw wasn't just for me, it was for you too. You may think you have time. You may think you can put off changing your life, that you can wait until tomorrow or next week or next year. But what if you're wrong? What if you're standing on the edge of your own pit and you don't even realize it? I was pulled faster and faster toward the light, and as I got closer, I felt my body again. I could feel my heart beating, my lungs gasping for air. I knew I was returning, but I didn't know what was waiting for me on the other side. The light grew brighter, and everything around me started to blur. I felt myself falling again, but this time, it wasn't into darkness. It was into something familiar. And then, I opened my eyes. Resurrection and revelation. The next thing I remember, my eyes opened. But this wasn't like waking up from a nightmare. No. This was different. It wasn't just my body coming back to life, it was like something deeper, something more fundamental was returning. I could feel everything again, the cool air on my skin, the soft ground beneath me, the beat of my heart. At first, I thought I was still dreaming. I could hear muffled voices around me, but they didn't make sense. Were they real? Was I still in that dark place? But when I looked up, everything changed. I was back in the world I had once known, but nothing felt the same. The faces around me were blurry, like they were far away. There was a panic in the air, and I could hear frantic whispers. "He's alive. He's alive," they said. I was lying in a coffin, surrounded by mourners. They had already prepared to bury me. But I wasn't dead anymore. I wasn't gone. And that's when I realized something. Something that hit me like a thunderbolt. I had seen the end. I had seen what lay beyond death. And it wasn't just a story, it was real. More real than anything I'd ever known. The things I had dismissed, the things I had ignored, the things I had thought didn't matter, they mattered more than I could ever understand. I opened my mouth to speak, to say something, but nothing came out. My voice was weak, my throat dry. I tried again, this time with more force. I saw it. I saw everything. The people around me stared in shock. They had been preparing my body for burial, thinking I was gone. But here I was, gasping for air, blinking back the fog from my eyes. Do you ever stop and wonder what would happen if you were given a second chance? What if you woke up from a life you thought was over? Would you change everything? Or would you keep doing the same things, day after day, thinking there's always more time? I could feel the weight of what I had seen, the torment, the regret, the abyss I almost fell into. And now, I had the chance to do something about it. But as I lay there, gasping for breath, I realized how easy it is to forget. How easy it is to ignore the reality that awaits all of us. How easy it is to believe we have forever. But I didn't have forever. And neither do you. I sat up, still dizzy from the experience, my body trembling. I could see their eyes now, wide with disbelief. They didn't know how to react. But I couldn't hold back. I had to tell them. I had to warn them. I struggled to get to my feet, clinging to the coffin's edge, as I looked at the faces of those around me. "There's no time," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Don't waste your life." I saw it. I saw what happens when it's too late. And it's real. The crowd stared in silence. Some were crying, others were just staring at me, like they couldn't believe what they were hearing. But I knew what I had seen was more than just a dream. It was a warning. A call to change before it's too late. I wanted to scream at them, to shake them, to make them understand what I had seen. But all I could do was sit there, shaking, trying to make sense of the truth that had just been revealed to me. How many times do we ignore the warning signs in our own lives? How many times do we think, "I'll fix things tomorrow," or "I'll make things right later"? What if later never comes? What if the moment to change is now, and we're too busy with the small things to see it? I was alive again, but I didn't know how much time I had left. None of us do. The only thing I knew for certain was this: I couldn't keep living the way I had before. I couldn't ignore the truth anymore. The voice I had heard in the darkness, the one that had told me I was forgiven, it wasn't just a message for me. It was for everyone. And if you're hearing this right now, It's for you, too. You might think you have time. You might think, I'll change when I'm ready. But what if you're not ready when it's your turn? What if the moment to change slips away before you even realize it? I don't want that for you. I don't want you to be standing on the edge of the abyss, wondering how you got there. I want you to know, now, that you can change. You can choose a different path. You don't have to walk down the road that leads to regret. And as I stood there, feeling the weight of the second chance I had been given, I understood something deep inside me. This life, this moment, is all we really have. It's all we can control. What we choose to do with it matters more than anything else. The light in the distance wasn't just a light. It was a path, and I had been given a chance to walk it again. But the question is, what will you do with the time you have left? Because the truth is, none of us know when the end will come. Understanding the meaning of eternity. Now, let me ask you something that might keep you up at night. Have you ever thought about eternity? I mean, really thought about it. We all know what forever means, but have you ever stopped to consider what it feels like to live without an end? I never did. Not until I saw it. Not until I stood on the edge of that abyss, peering into a place where time has no meaning. Where there's no morning, no evening, no end. Just an endless, unyielding stretch of existence. Before that day, I thought eternity was just a word. Something we said to describe a long time. But after what I saw, I know now, eternity is not about time at all. It's about forever. And forever isn't something you can just shake off once it's yours. Imagine this, you are alive now. You have moments, choices, chances to make things right. But what if that time runs out? What if the choices you make today echo into an eternity that you can never escape from? Can you feel that? The weight of eternity pressing on your chest. When I was in that place, surrounded by those tormented souls, I realized how precious time really is. We think we can wait to change. We think we can do it tomorrow. But tomorrow doesn't exist in eternity. There's only now. Only the choices you make in this moment. That's the reality of eternity. It doesn't care about your plans, your excuses, or your later. Eternity just is. And once you step into it, there's no going back. Do you think you're ready for that kind of forever? To be locked into a path with no way to change your direction. The people I saw in the flames, they weren't just paying for what they did. They were paying for what they didn't do. The chances they didn't take. The good they ignored. The life they wasted. I felt it. The agony of knowing it was too late to fix anything. Too late to go back. They couldn't speak anymore. Their regret was louder than their voices, and it would never stop. That's the weight of eternity. No end. No escape. It wasn't just the fire that made it hell. It was the forever of it all. The idea that your mistakes and choices will follow you for all time, and you never get a second chance to make it right. Can you imagine that? Can you feel the fear of realizing you've missed your shot? But what's even more terrifying? You don't know when your time will come. You don't know when your eternity begins. And it doesn't care how many later days you plan for. It can happen at any moment. Do you feel that in your chest right now? That tightness, that fear. That's the reminder you need. Do you really believe you have time? Because I thought I had time too. I thought I could keep living like I was. But I saw the truth, and it scared me more than anything else ever has. Here's the thing, no one escapes this. No one escapes eternity. You can't outrun it. You can't buy your way out of it. And you can't ignore it. You will live forever. And where you end up, where your eternity takes you, will be determined by the choices you make right now. You have the chance to choose. Right now. The life you're living, does it match up to the eternity you want? Are you ready to face what comes next? Think about it. Because once it's too late, there's no turning back. A final warning. Let me be clear with you, you do not have time to wait. You do not have time to push this aside, to think I'll figure it out later, because later may never come. The truth is, I didn't think I was running out of time either. I thought I had forever. But I didn't. And you don't, either. You might be thinking, that's not me. I'm not like those people who end up in the fire. But that's the thing, none of us think we are until we find ourselves standing at the edge, staring into the abyss, realizing that our choices have already led us to that place. I've seen it. I've been there. And I'm telling you now, there's no do-over. There's no reset button when it's over. Your choices today will follow you forever. Do you want to look back, knowing you could have done something to change your path but waited too long? Look at your life right now. What are you doing with it? What are you living for? Do you even know? Or are you just coasting along, hoping that everything will work out in the end? I thought the same way. I lived for today. I lived for the moment. I didn't think about eternity because I thought I had time. But let me tell you, time runs out quicker than you think. I've been shown what happens when you wait too long. When you keep pushing things aside, thinking that you'll get around to it when you're ready. It's not about when you think you'll be ready, it's about when the time comes, and you're either ready or you're not. Do you want to be the one left wishing you had changed? Do you want to be the one standing there, looking at your life, knowing it's too late? Right now, you have a chance. Right now, you can make a choice. The path you're on, it's leading somewhere. And only you can change that direction. If you don't act now, if you don't make the choice to turn your life around, then when the end comes, you'll wish you had. You'll wish you hadn't waited. But let me ask you, why wait? Why take that chance when you can act right now? Don't wait for a second chance. Don't wait for a moment when it's too late. Because trust me, that moment will come and you won't be ready. No one ever is. This is your warning. You've heard it. The question is, what will you do with it? Will you change? Will you make sure that the eternity you face is one you're prepared for, one you'll want to live forever? Don't waste time. Tomorrow is not promised, and the eternity that awaits you doesn't care about your excuses. Make the choice now. Don't wait until it's too late. You don't have forever. Now, think about it. What path will you take? Where will your choices lead you? The clock is ticking.
Thank you for watching this powerful story. If you feel a sense of urgency to change or need guidance, don't leave here without taking action. Like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And if you've been moved, let us know in the comments. Pray for strength, share your thoughts, or simply let us know how this video changed your perspective. Take that step today. Your eternity could depend on it.